So tensions are definitely at an all-time high in the latest episode of The Fosters. Let's break it down right here on What Happened. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of my recap show. Tonight's subject, The Fosters, Season 4, Episode 14, Doors and Windows. Let's dive into some of the biggest moments from this episode. So remember when Brandon saw Emma with that pregnancy test? Well, Mariana confronts her about it, and Emma tells her she is not pregnant. However, this look tells a different story.
I thought that I might be, but the test was negative and I got my period. Thank God. I know, right? See you in class.
Later on in the episode, Brandon hears crying coming from Mariana's room, and when he walks in, he sees Emma crying on the bed. She ends up confiding in him, telling him that she is indeed a few weeks pregnant and is struggling with what to do. She doesn't want to add this to everything that's going on with Jesus and his recovery, and she doesn't want to be one of those teen moms. Brandon seems to be the only one who knows about the pregnancy so far, and near the end of the episode, we see Mariana happily bounce into Brandon's room to tell him that Emma isn't pregnant, but of course, he knows otherwise. And I also have a feeling that Mariana might be a little mad that Emma chose to confide in Brandon instead of her best friend. Someone who isn't so happy about all this news, of course, is Jesus. Now, of course, he's struggling with his therapy and his recovery and his temper and all of that. And all he really wants to do is be with everybody else. We see him at the beginning of the episode trying to get up the steps, and he's fallen because he just wants to be upstairs with everyone. The doctor tells Lena that Jesus will obviously get better over time, but his short fuse that keeps going off may never leave. Brandon ends up taking Jesus to his therapy one day to give Lena a break, and he stumbles upon a classroom across the hall which is using music as therapy. This immediately catches Brandon's interest, and he asks the teacher, who seems like a young college student maybe, if they can maybe get together to discuss this further. Of course, she thinks he's trying to ask her out on a date, and she says that she has a boyfriend, but Brandon reiterates that no, he just really wants to kind of learn about how they're using music to heal people, because apparently it can help rewire the brain. Now, Brandon decides to kind of try his own hand at this when he gets home. All seems fine and dandy until Brandon goes to help Emma with her playing, and Jesus mistakes it as something else.
Good, and then Emma, just make sure you keep your hands here, there, and you do all the way from the top. That's good. Yeah, there you go, just like that. You got it? Yeah. All right, let's start over. You're doing good.
Going back to Brandon and Emma's conversation in Mariana's room, while this was happening, Jesus is trying his hardest to get upstairs. He makes it halfway up the stairs before sitting down, and then he sees Emma and Brandon emerge from the room, and Emma says she has to go freshen up. This immediately looks like something else to Jesus, so later he snaps at her, telling her that she's wearing too much makeup and he's tired, so she should leave. And then, at the end of the episode, we get this heartbreaking moment. Now, before I get into what's going on with Callie and her trial, I want to run through some other highlights really quickly. Mariana goes to therapy and discovers that a lot of the situations she's been in have been making her feel scared and powerless, and she traces it back to being left in a crib as a baby, and that she has no trust, really. And when the moms go with her to therapy the next time, the therapist touches on, perception and how everybody looks at these problems and issues a different way, and sometimes trust can be broken, and in order to get rid of secrets, you need to establish some trust. Ultimately, the kids get their doors back, and Mariana also makes an anonymous Twitter to spill her secrets, like post-secret. While again, we don't see Sophia, we do know that she is in fact safe. Robert talks to Steph and tells her that Sophia told him about a strange man that followed her the day of the rally, that yelled at her for breaking into his house, and all that kind of stuff. And a light bulb finally goes off in Robert's head as he says, oh hey, Callie and Sophia look so much alike that maybe he mistook Sophia for Callie. Steph figures out that it's Doug Harvey that harassed Sophia, and she confronts Callie asking why she broke into his house. And she reiterates that if the DA finds out about this, then she really could be going to prison for years, that she's not been helping her case at all. Some more with Steph. She ends up getting offered a promotion to detective in the human trafficking department. Now, Lena has of course been paranoid. She doesn't want Steph to keep pursuing Gray and everybody if it's gonna jeopardize her job, especially because Lena's taking a leave of absence. So Steph decides to take the job and tells Lena that she's not going to give up on finding the dirt on Malloy and Gray. She's actually going to get him from the inside. Ooh. So remember that senior project of Callie's that just keeps getting messed up like multiple times? Like, is she actually ever going to get it done? Well, she decides that this time around, she is going to build her own cell to represent her time in solitary. and she ends up wallpapering her huge-ass file onto the wall. Because even though she has changed, it's really her file and what it says about her that's been holding her back and keeping her from winning her case. So AJ and Aaron have been helping her build it, and when AJ asks Callie why she's putting the file up all over the wall, Aaron responds for her.
Well, I think the point is to expose what's wrong with the system. You know, show how a life can be boiled down to a bunch of words on paper that aren't even true.
Now moving on to Callie's case. The lawyers have come up with a deal. Pay everyone off with Robert's money. So this means not only the victims of the other car, it means paying off Troy too, which no one is happy about. I'm not happy about. But we know that Troy will definitely like this because Steph learns that he's in a lot of money trouble, and he was even written out of his grandma's will days before a murder. Now, of course, that seems like motive. However, I'll get to that in a second. Callie, of course, doesn't want to pay people off. She wants to be able to go to trial and tell the truth about everything. So like I said, with the will, Troy seems to have a motive. However, we end up having to rule Troy out as a suspect, which I'm definitely mad about because he is totally a creeper. Steph runs into Detective Gray, who's obviously kind of creepy. Steph confronts him about what she's found about Troy, and Detective Gray says, here, and he writes down something that will give Steph access to all the case files, and he says, I've actually been doing my job, which is shocking. Steph learns that Troy has an airtight alibi for the night of the murder. He was in fact at work at the time, and there are stamped time cards and surveillance footage to back it all up, and Steph has even watched the footage. So Callie then has to go break the news to poor Kyle, who is definitely not too happy about this.
You okay?
Yeah, no, why wouldn't I be? I mean, I shouldn't have let you get my hopes up, but hey, that's on me, right?
In the end, Callie tells Aaron that they're going to take the deal and that they're going to pay off all these people, and he actually says what we've all been thinking.
You're gonna take the deal.
Good.
Really? Doesn't seem unfair to you?
This girl deserves a break.
Yeah, girl deserves a break. Now, I just hope that somehow justice will be served in some way for both Callie and for this case. So those were some of the big moments from this episode, but of course, the next episode looks even more intense. I mean, the words in the promo that flash in between the scenes say, all hell breaks loose.
Something's going on. Oh my god.
You're screwing my brother.
Jesus.
You gotta calm down.
Shut up!
Okay, so it really only shows things escalating with Jesus, Emma, and Brandon, but we always know that there's more drama than that in an episode, and what could it be? Now it's that time again to hit me up in the comments or on my socials and leave me all your thoughts about this episode. How do you feel about Callie taking the deal for Robert to pay everyone off? Do you think Brandon has maybe found himself a new career goal? Will we ever find out who killed Martha Johnson? Let me know, and then be sure to check out this week's other recaps right over here and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And then come back next week so we can discuss this entire Jesus, Brandon, Emma fight. It's like a smackdown. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you guys later.